So legalizing marijuana in California, it would not work for many reasons. First, it is against federal law, which was not stated that federal law that it should be legalized according to federal law in the first affirmative speech. Right now, what he's saying is just in California, because right now, even if it is legalized in California, according to federal law, possession of marijuana is illegal. The National Organization to Reform Marijuana Laws, whose goal is to achieve the repeal of marijuana prohibition, so they're on the affirmative side, they state that possession of marijuana is punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a minimum fine of $1,000 for a conviction. For a second conviction, the penalties increased to a 15-day mandatory minimum sentence with a maximum of 2 years in prison and a fine of up to $2,500. Subsequent convictions carry a 90-day mandatory minimum sentence and a maximum of up to 3 years in prison and a fine of up to $5,000. So unless this is passed by federal law, you're still going to be put in jail no matter if this proposition is passed. In the same way, it's kind of like it won't work as well, especially since California hasn't been able to pass just in California. Now we have to get all 50 states to pass it federally. Next, marijuana use could actually rise in the legal market for the drug. Rise in the legal market. Kevin A. Sabat, a reporter for the LA Times who has worked at the Office of National Drug Control Policy, states marijuana is not very difficult to obtain currently, but a legal market would make getting the drug that much easier. Tobacco and alcohol are used regularly by 30 and 65% of the population respectively, while all illegal drugs combined are used by about 6% of Americans. Now, in the Netherlands, where marijuana is de facto legalized, lifetime use increased consistently and sharply after this policy shift triggered commercialization, tripling among young adults, according to data analysis from the RAND Corporation. And then also how the legalization of marijuana could lead to fights for other personal freedoms to be legal. Joe Masurley, creator of BalancePolitics.org, finds legalization of marijuana could eventually lead to the legalization of harder drugs or all drugs altogether. Culture shifts rarely happen overnight. Behaviors of society stay relatively stable with only small incremental changes. Legalization of marijuana would further shift the culture to more of an anything-goes mentality. Step by step, more drugs will gain acceptance with advocacy of the legalization of harder drugs. Drugs like heroin, cocaine, and amphetamines, which we may view now as unacceptable for legalization, may eventually be sold over the counter at every drugstore. And then also, another reason why legalization would not work is that drug abuse is widespread now, but it could also be seen that it would rise afterwards. So now the National Institute of Drug Abuse leads the nation. Leads the nation the power of science to bear on drug abuse and addiction, and they state marijuana accounted for 4.2 million of estimated 7 million Americans dependent on or abusing illicit drugs. In 2008, approximately 15% of people entering drug abuse treatment programs reported marijuana as their primary drug of abuse. 61% of the persons under 15 reported marijuana as their primary drug of abuse, as 56% of those 15 to 19 years old. So that's why marijuana is illegal. Think of how it could be when it's legal, because even according to this proposition, if it's just 21 years old, most of these statistics are between 15 to 19 years old, where it wouldn't be legal for them otherwise. Also, if looking for drug abuse, medical marijuana, which is already legal, has been abused in that it's not being used just for chemotherapy or some kind of cancer. California NORML is a nonprofit membership and a state organization, and they state Prop 215, which for legalizing medical marijuana, lists cancer, anorexia, AIDS, chronic pain, spasticity, glaucoma, arthritis, migraine, or any other illnesses for which marijuana provides relief. But physicians have recommended marijuana for hundreds of indications, including such common complaints as insomnia, PMS, post-traumatic stress, depression, and substance use. Another way that legalization would not work as well is that There are violent, there are violent outward effects against others. In 2009, 33% of the 12,055 drivers fatally injured in motor vehicle crashes with known test results tested positive for at least one drug, compared to 28% in 2005. In 2009, marijuana was the most prevalent drug found in this population. Approximately 28% of fatally injured drivers who tested positive for marijuana. And so that is being like a disadvantage, is that there's already violent outward effects. So if it were legalized, you could basically just like smoking a joint before you get in the car, and then there you go, driving. You look for those violent outward effects in driving. Also, where it impairs motor skills, reaction time for motor skills such as driving is reduced by 41% after smoking one joint, and is reduced 63% after smoking 2 joints. The money raised by legalization, but the legalization would not offset the cost. Asa Hutcherson, who has worked for the department, there are significant cost burdens that come along with increased marijuana use. For example, there will be greater social costs for decline in worker productivity and school performance. Legalization will also lead to a greater need for drug education, rehabilitation, and treatment, and there will be costs associated with selling the drug. So looking at decline in worker productivity and school performance, basically, if this was legalized, it could be that you could be smoking marijuana right before you come to work, not necessarily while you are working, but then that would inhibit your working productivity and also school performance. That's another disadvantage. So the reasons why legalization will not work is, first, because it is against federal law. So that would need to be passed even after California state law. Marijuana use would rise in the legal market. It could also lead to fights for other personal freedoms like heroin, cocaine. Drug abuse is widespread now. It could get even higher afterwards. Since medical marijuana is already abused, marijuana itself, if it becomes legal, could be abused as well. There are many violent effects. It impairs motor skills. So those are many of the disadvantages to legalizing marijuana.